Being 5:15, we'll call the Finance and Personnel Committee meeting to order. And we stand for pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First on the agenda, we'll have a motion to adopt the agenda. Are there any changes or additions to the agenda? If not, can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Barrington, second by Roberts. All those in favor?
Aye.
Approved, motion carried. Next, we have the approval of the September 6th meeting minutes. Are there any changes or additions to the minutes?
Make a motion to accept the minutes as printed.
Second.
Motion by Roberts, second by Besaw. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next on the agenda is consideration of wages for commission, mayor, council. Chad?
I will kick off that conversation. So this was a continuation from last month. In your packet, Nicole did some research and provided you a little bit additional information about compensation for municipal officers. So I'll kind of go through that real quick as we kick off, going into what compensation options would be. So this is information she pulled out of the Handbook for Wisconsin Municipalities, which is a document from the League of Wisconsin Municipalities. Just want to kind of bring your attention first to the first yellow section in here. We talked about, we identified now that compensation for elected offices in cities and villages must be established before the earliest time for filing nomination papers for office. That's according to state statute 8.05 subsection 1. So what that means is if the council is interested in adjusting the compensation amounts for elected officials, according to that state statute, it has to be done before nomination papers go out for the council. So what that means is the earliest that nomination papers can go out right now is December 1st. So that you need to change these by ordinance before December 1st so that they could take effect by the April 2024 election. If you don't make that ordinance change by December 1st, it would not be eligible to go in effect till the April 2025 change of alderpersons. Another point, and we talked about this a little bit last month, elected officials cannot change their wage for the current term. You can only make changes for wages for the next round of elections. So for example, if you change these wages before December 1st, they will be eligible, the new incoming elected officials would be eligible for the change. Because we have staggered seats, the ones that are in existing office that are not on the election that term have to wait until they are reelected in the April 2025 election. So the point is you can't change your wages. You have to change wage. You're changing wages for the next person that is elected, whether it's yourself or somebody else. That's per state statute. Another comment from last month was that can we set this up into an automatic or annual percentage increase so you don't have to go through this process? Or can it be automatic? That is also defined in state statute that it is illegal or it cannot be done that you can have automatic cost of living updates for government body officials. You have to be specific in what the wage, the compensation is. Now, you can create a schedule for the next 5-10 years, specifically that in 2024 it's this, specifically 2025 it's this, specifically 2026 it's this. But you can't just put it automatically percentage, based on cost of living adjustments. So those are the kind of points that we talked about last month that I want to point out, in the end of the packet, you see that we have the blank draft ordinance that we would fill in based on how you guys want to adjust the wages. But Nicole went in and modified, Nicole and Judy went in and modified that spreadsheet that you saw last month based on some of the comments that you provided at the last meeting. So the gray area here is what the compensation currently is. So for example, the mayor compensated at $3,400 per year plus $30 per meeting and $35 per meeting for a committee chairman. So if that attendance happens, it's about $8,500, $8,560 a year. If you guys decide to change based on what the conversation was last month, go up to $8,400 per year, depending on if you want to go $35 a meeting or $40 per meeting attended. These are the new compensations if a mayor would attend all meetings throughout the year. And you can kind of see how that fits in. It obviously brings it up a little bit in the table to the comparison communities that are related. Same with the alderpersons. In this table, the gray is the existing, which you are today. Option one, be increasing it from potentially $3,000 a year annual compensation to $4,000 a year annual compensation. If you increase the meetings attended from 30 to 35, and if a person chairs the meeting from 35 to 45, if that person attends 6 meetings and all 6 meetings a month and chairs one of those meetings and is the chair of one of those meetings, going to this option would be a compensation of about $6,440. If you change that to the next tier, $4,000 a year, hypothetically being compensated $40 per meeting, each meeting attended. And if they chair $60 per meeting, an annual compensation would be roughly about $7,120. And you can kind of see where those compensations fall into your comparison communities. So that's kind of the information that was given to us last week or last month to kind of provide to you. I do have an Excel spreadsheet up here that if you guys want to throw in different wages and see what those work out to be, we can easily plug those numbers in. But from here, I guess you guys got to determine where you want to go with your compensation wages.
Having those wages, are we okay? Are we going to be, would you be able to find an extra 20 grand a year?
When I calculated it out, including, we went from, what are we at now, Chad, 5220, and if you go up to 7, it was closer to 30. And you do half next year and half the year after. The increase was like 1250 next year, and then another 1250 going into the following year. I'm going to tell you right now that the budget is already tight. So those dollars aren't going to make a difference in the whole realm of the budget process right now. But even with our increase in state shared revenue, and we haven't seen an increase in that dollar amount for 20 years plus. And you look at all the inflationary factors built into the budget, everything is looking the same manner. Everything is going up in very large percentages. Health insurance, we had a few employees move from single plans to family plans very quickly. You're talking $25,000. So in the realm of what's happening in the budgetary process right now, I would say that is not difficult.
Have we, has there been, I mean, I don't want to jump way to ahead. Has there been a number that what we are going to be receiving additional of shared revenue?
It's about $457,000. And we know that based on $2.1 million, $457,000, and we have an $8 million budget. So $457,000 to our $8 million is less than inflation. So it's 5%. So when we're looking at inflationary factors playing a huge role in our budget going into next year, it's still causing some decisions to be made, let's just say, and some things to be looked at and some numbers to be tightened up and moving into next year's budget. But when you're looking at a $12,000 increase and looking at, finding people to fill the roles of which you guys sit in, and good people that really want to take the time to come to meetings and spend the time understanding all of the nuances of what you guys have to do. $12,000 is right. Not a lot of money to work with. Putting things into perspective.
So help me understand a little bit better. So we would have to approve this change before December 1st for the people that are going to be on the ballot in April. Are we going to have to address this again next year for the people that are going to be on the ballot the following April?
Nope, because that.
It would automatically become part of the policy. Okay.
So I guess, we're all kind of in same area. This is on the agenda, so I guess I would be prepared to make a motion to do the extra, the $4,040 per meeting, $60 for chair. For the increased and then for the mayor, my motion would also be for, what do I have to do them separate or can I do them together?
You can make the recommendation for both, because it's actually what the council will look at. We'll plug in those numbers. And then the council will review this ordinance as whole. So you can basically say, you're gonna, create the ordinance or have the council consider the ordinance based on the changes to what you just said. The council is not gonna approve two ordinances. How's that? The council is gonna approve one ordinance.
What I don't understand is when we all run for position on city council, there was no money involved. You run for city council to serve the people. Now, I got almost 40 years on the fire department. And if you think the guys are there for the money, you're nuts, because it's not there. And for what they do and what we do it's stupid. And to raise money, to give us ourselves a raise, I think it's senseless. If you're here for the money, you don't belong here.
I agree with Bernie 100%. I don't think that we need a raise.
So, there any, we hashed this out a month ago. We all talked about it quite at length. Some of us slept on it, thought about it. A few of us weren't here and stuff like that, but does anybody else got thoughts on this?
So just to clean up, did you kind of made a motion?
I did make a
So
motion.
there's a motion on the floor.
Okay.
So why don't you finish that motion? How you want to finish it, and then you can see if there's a second to that.
So the motion I have is to increase the wage for mayor to $8,400 a year, $40 a meeting, $60 a chair, and increase alderpersons to $4,000 a year, $40 a meeting, and $60 for chair.
What about the citizen members?
Is that a separate motion, Chad? or is that-
That's part of this ordinance.
Yep, that's part of the
Oh, as far
ordinance as
as-
well.
The other thing talked about last month, for anybody that wasn't here, as part of this, it was talked about including the planning commission, who's currently not paid for meetings, to include them and citizen members of that committee, as well as citizen members of the economic development committee, which currently are not paid. So that,
Point of order, Tim is still working on a motion.
right.
I would
with-
like to,
It's not discussion time yet. He's got to finish. his
included in my motion is to include the planning commission, the commissions and the committees to be also paid at the same rate as the committee members.
I don't
Just to
think that should
clarify,
be-
the citizen members?
Correct.
That shouldn't be one motion, should it? Shouldn't that be two separate
That's
motions?
what I thought.
That, you can't,
Is it the same ordinance?
Yep.
Then it's one motion.
It's all in this one ordinance right here.
That's why I appreciate you asking, or whoever asking.
Yeah.
That's why I was just bringing up last
I
month.
get it. He just has some questions.
So your motion, Tim, is to, what you said, increase the mayor's salary to 8,400 a year, 40 per meeting, 60 per chair. And Mr. Roberts' motion is also to increase council pay 4,000 per year, up from the 3. And then meetings, 40 per meeting, 60 per chair. And Mr. Roberts' motion also includes to compensate citizen members of Economic Development Planning Commission Committee as the other committees. All part of this ordinance change motion.
What dollar amount?
The same dollar amount as the committee members, $40.
$40 per meeting.
Yep,
And 60 per chair.
and 60 for chair.
So that Mr. Roberts has a motion on the floor,
I'll second.
second by Belinda Croy. If there's no discussion on the motion on the floor,
I would ask if there's any other discussion.
further discussion of the motion on the floor.
I mean, basically, I realize that we are all here for our civic duty. We want to help the community. The reason why I originally brought this is because, one, the shared revenue has increased, and this is our opportunity to make it more attractive for people in the community to step up and do their civic duty. Time is money. Everybody wants, we don't volunteer like we used to. People just, if you're in any kind of group in town, a church or American Legion or whatever, it's, people don't volunteer like they used to. And we've had a lot of vacant seats over the last couple of years. We've had uncontested races. And I just want to make it attractive for people to take those roles on, because we cannot operate this city without councilmen. We cannot operate the city without city treasurers and city administrators. Like it's all one. And this is the year where everybody got a pay increase. And I think that it would be good for the community to make these roles more attractive.
I don't think it's gonna make one iota difference with getting more people to run for office, for alderman, or any of the other offices by raising the pay. I think people serve it because they want to be part of the community. I don't think the money is what's drawing people to running for office.
And I guess my view of it is I wouldn't mind seeing a pay increase, absolutely. I mean, everybody likes to see more money, but I don't believe that we need to jump the base and the meeting. My personal preference would be to maybe leave the meeting and the chairman, that section in there, and leave our base salary the same, because that way it doesn't give the guys that don't always come to every meeting that extra money for nothing. Give you money when physically come and sit in these seats and fight for whatever's being talked about. It's just my view.
And I just want to reiterate what John was sharing about the planning commission is the only commission under city council's purview. And it's the only one that has citizen members that are not paid as far as whether it's a committee or a commission. And to leave them unpaid with everybody else being paid, especially considering what the planning commission does. I really feel like they have to be paid.
I agree. I think they should be paid, but I don't think it should be lumped together in the same bundle with the other persons. I don't know if there's any way to separate it, to give them a raise, give the planning commission people a raise and the economic development, but it's all lumped together, so I don't agree with it. I mean, I think they should get a raise because the Park and Rec gets one and so does finance. Or not finance, but citizen members that are on the other committees all get paid. I think it's a kick in the butt that they don't, but it's all lumped together, so I'm not in favor of that, but I guess there's no way to separate it.
So currently, I mean, if there's more discussion on the motion, that's great. Then it can continue, but currently the motion on the floor and seconded would have to have either an amendment made to it or be voted on, and then discussion would continue on a different option for those committees, or one of those three options on in your packet, yellow option being a different amount, or the status quo and consideration of the committee level. So just point of clarification, there would either need to be an amendment to a motion made or a call the question on the motion that's on the floor. And the motion that's on the floor is Mr. Roberts' motion, seconded by Belinda.
Actually, I'm not on this committee, so I can't second the motion. I just want to, yeah, I just realized that. So
Is there any way to separate it?
You have a motion on the floor, so you gotta finish that out.
So is there a second to that motion or further discussion
We're out in the meeting. Can I second it?
or amendment time?
I'll second it.
The motion stands on the floor with Mr. Roberts and seconded by Mr. Dorsey. So at this point, we either continue further discussion or we call the question and vote, and then come up with a secondary motion or another motion.
there could be a friendly amendment made to this motion to change the dollar amounts to this ordinance,
Correct.
but it has to be made by somebody on the committee. And it has to be accepted. So
So we gotta make an amendment to this,
friendly amendment to this, yeah.
just have a pay increase for the planning commission, economic development? Is that what we need? An amendment to this?
It's all in one ordinance.
I'm gonna call a question.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's vote on what's on the floor. And we want to, if it passes, it passes. If it fails, we can move on.
So, Mayor Marcus called the question, so we have a motion and a second on the floor. And that motion is to increase the base pay up to 4,000 a year and 40 per meeting, 60 per chair if chaired. And that increase would be for council members, and the increase for the mayor would be up to 84 base, 8,400 per year base, 40 per meeting, 60 of chair. And this motion also includes payment for citizen members of the Planning Commission and Economic Development Committee at the same pay rate as other committees of the city.
And Park and Rec.
And Park and Rec.
At Park and Rec. So being that the question is called, we need a vote. All those in favor of this motion? Should we take a roll call?
Roll call or raise your hand, either way.
I can just go around. Barrington,
No.
Olskey,
I feel like I'm between a rock and a hard place. Yes.
Yes.
Roberts,
Yes.
Dorsey,
No.
Yes. Oz,
No.
Roy,
Yes.
Lisa,
No,
Shay, no.
1, 2, 5, yes.
No.
5, no.
We have tie,
I have a vote, yeah.
in the case of a tie, Mayor Herder. Votes,
My vote is a yes.
yes. It is, motion is passed, 6-5. Motion is carried.
So we will make those changes as indicated, and then it'll be referred to council for additional approval. And since we're looking at getting this done, I'm assuming that you guys want to see this done before that December 1st nomination papers are filed, then we would probably do that in one reading to keep that going, unless you guys want to do it in 2 readings. We can talk about that.
So I think that's it for that discussion. I guess this would have been the time to get that taken care of. So the recommendation to council moves on. And next on the agenda, thank you, everybody. It's not always a easy decision there. Finance director's monthly reports. Judy?
John, and for some reason. it didn't work.
What was it? There you go.
There it went.
It did?
Yeah, you.
All right, so we're gonna start out with the expenditure side. So at this point, we are in the month of August. So when you would compare 8 months to 12 months in a calendar year, we're at about 66.67%. And I like to go to this one that has a little bit more detail. Most of the categories are running either below or under. We have the cable 3 here that we have talked about, and that is this room that will come out of designated funds. And I will make that movement in the February presentation, the year-end presentation. Social services, most of that money and those expenditures are completed for the year. That's why that one is so high. And we are keeping an eye on this equipment maintenance account. And currently within the 2024 budget, I have a 15% increase in that line item. So that's what I was talking about when we're looking into the next year budget and where those dollar amounts are going. So far, it's at 15%. Depending on where this all shakes out, maybe I can reduce that down to 10%, but just keeping an eye on it and see what the next couple months bring here. Debt service, just because we've just about paid all of our principal and interest for the year. Does anyone have any questions on anything specific within this, on the expenditure and line item? So far, things are looking good. I don't see anything besides that maintenance item that we've been talking about. That'll go over for the year. On the revenue side, we have collected, I booked our property taxes, so the county pays us. We collect in January, December through January of every year. And then we settle with the counties, and then the counties take all of the taxing responsibilities after that time. And once they collect in August, they pay us in full, which is nice. And then they have to deal with all of the collections at the county seat. So it's nice that we don't have to take part in a lot of that. The special assessments, we just collected some deferred assessments. We never budget for those because we never know if lots are gonna be sold. Once they're sold, they come out of that. We book them in here. And state shared revenue, this is wrong. So we've collected 423,000 of the 2.1 million. Again, this is the line item we discussed earlier. That will go up by about $450,000 going into next year. We have also received our highway aid estimates, and they will be flat going into next year. They had talked about an increase, but our calculation has come in flat. And I was a little shocked at that with all the infrastructure that we have been paying for. But the only way I can think that that calculation over the entire state is that people are actually putting more into their dollars and their roads than we are at this time. But again, last year it was Lions Lima, much less expensive than what we're doing right now. So it's a 5-year average. We should see that increase, especially with the downtown project, going back in our downtown, the Oshkosh Street. So hopefully we will see an increase in those dollar amounts. License and permits, fines and forfeitures, everything is running about where anticipated. And then you can see here in the interest area that our interest rate has increased immensely since I budgeted for this. So we were at like 1% and now we're at 5%. So we have collected twofold so far of what we had anticipated. I would expect that to continue through the end of the year. Kind of makes you sit and feel comfortable going into the end of the year with our revenue side in case something would come in short. We have an additional $70,000 in our revenue line items to cover anything that may happen between now and then, but I don't know of anything that would happen between now and then. So maybe some extra funding for our capital projects is what I'm hoping at year end, that we can share some of those dollars into that. Does anyone have any questions on any of the revenue side?
I do have a quick question on the interest. What's the law on being able to, how is that? That's monies that we just, rather than have it sitting somewhere, we optimize certain long-term revenues and we could, municipalities are allowed to gain interest on it?
So
Or,
statutorily, we are only allowed certain investments. And when you're looking at investments in, like, we can't invest in the stock market. That's against statutory law. So our biggest investment right now, in fact, actually, First State Bank is very good to us. They will meet the local government investment pool is one of the investments that a lot of communities use. They match the local government investment pool for us. So we're getting over 5% in cash, money in cash that sits over at First State Bank. They're matching those dollars. We could do some short-term CDs, things of that nature. But at this point, our cash dollars I've looked at some CDs, it doesn't make any sense for us. Especially when we're going through and doing projects as we are today and using money as swiftly as we are. So trying to time all of that stuff and make sure that I don't know exactly when a contractor is going to send me an $800,000 bill. So you don't want to be sitting there waiting 3 months for a CD to come due and you're like, oh, what am I going to do? Right? So I think we're in pretty good shape utilizing our hometown bank and being able to use them and work with them. They also, we do a lot of payroll work with them and they don't charge us extra for utilizing those systems through their banking process. So I think it's a great relationship that we've built with them.
thank you.
But very solid investments. We can't go outside the realm of AAA, corporate bonds, things of that nature.
That's interesting. Thank you.
And then one of the biggest concerns today, I guess we could talk about that too, is when we receive bond funds, because we do now, we've been bonding more often than not. I have to be real careful about how those bond funds are spent. One of the reasons that we did not bond for Oshkosh Street is because first, we weren't really positive about how the revenue stream is going to come in with all of the infrastructure that's being built up there. But I can't make more money on those dollars than we pay out, and we're only at like 3%. Now I can, but there's all kinds of rules, so I have to make sure that I'm keeping track schedule wise. Auditors want to see that, and definitely the IRS would if they came knocking at my door, the city's door, and they would say, what have you done? Have you spent down fast enough? So I have all kinds of rules that I have to apply to those dollars to make sure I'm spending 60% within the first 4 months and, 85% in the next X amount of months and that. And it wasn't a big deal when we were getting 1% interest, but it is now. So we have to make sure that we're spending those dollars in the next 2 years. So that way, what I want to do is maximize that interest rate using all of their rules. So now it's just a little bit more calculation and keeping track of those processes, but I've always done that. I've always followed the same path. So that is the revenue side. And assigned and unassigned fund balance, I did update the cable TV here is what I anticipate. About 90 coming in and then the 130,000, because I'm always talking about the cable TV paying for those dollars back to the general fund. So that's why you're seeing, normally you would see the revenue higher than the expenditures, but because this capital project was done within the council chambers, that's why that dollar is up, amount is up for this year. But nothing else has changed on the designated, assigned and unassigned fund balance. Does anybody have any questions on any of those assignments? If we don't use our wheel tax dollars this year, this is what happens to them. We mark the wheel tax even within our audit in its own specific line item, because we want our citizens to know that those are being spent in the way in which we designated those funds to be. So you can see at the end of 2023, we utilized those on Lions Lima and Lima Street right to the $0 amount. But then going into 2024, we could possibly be moving some of those funds in there. And again, that's going to be for our downtown project.
I have a question on wheel tax. Do you think it really brings in enough money to even have it? Doesn't really bring in a lot of money, does it?
So with that being said, I'm going to bring you right over here to my the wheel tax report. And this is what the wheel tax has done for our city from 2017, when we originally started collecting, to 2022. So we've done Northridge Drive, Cedar Street, High Street Crossing, Industrial Loop Crossing, Shawano Street. And some of these were match funding. So we would receive some grant dollars. And this money gives us a pot to go to. If all of a sudden we receive some grant dollars, we can say, oh yeah, we have $130,000 that we're going to be collecting in wheel tax. There's the dollars. We don't have to try to scrape the dollars from something else and say, okay, we can do that projects like we did with, I think it was Shawano Street, right? Chad, that was the one where,
That LRIP one?
yep. So that was half wheel tax, half LRIP funds. Oh yeah, there it is up there. So we spent a little bit more out of here. So it allowed us to be able to do that project we had funding in here. I really believe it bridges a nice gap to be able to utilize this funding.
So your point on its own, but like Judy said, it bridges, it's a combination of other funding sources to get you to, you've spent nearly $700,000 worth of improvements in so many years.
Right. So I went through that. Any other questions on assigned and unassigned fund balance? Then we have the schedule, same one I presented last month, but again, we have our projects moving into the future, and I'm sure as soon as we get some time or Department of Public Works gets a chance to take a good look at this again, we'll go out of 2027 and start moving forward of what these projects are going to look like, because we like to tie debt service to projects in the future. So Eventually we'll move forward on some solid projects and what they're going to be done, but 23, 24, 25, so we're solid for 4 years of what those projects are gonna look like, and we even have some waiting in the wings. And we add those as dollars allow us to down here. We try to keep a list of those things that are pending in the future too, so, but haven't had a specific date set to them. And then otherwise, that's the end of that reporting. I have my finance director's report. So this month, my lion's share of time is spent on our 2024 budget. So I spend a lot of time with department heads going through their budget estimates, try to fine tune. We went through the health insurance as a group. What are those dollars going to look like? So we already put out a different estimate in September, and now we can fine tune what those dollars look like. People have made choices about what plan they're gonna use, so do some of that kind of stuff. Revenues are still coming in through the state of Wisconsin. Assessed values will come in very late, third week of October. And then that budget can be finalized and presented to council. We finalized the 2022 audit. Had to complete a state single audit report, and that was done within the last 3 weeks. So I had to answer a lot of questions about the projects over here on Lions Lime and Lima, and then the Newton Blackmore Trail. And we needed to get that out to the federal government before the due date of September 30th. I attended a Civic Finance and Civic Board meeting, and as part of those committees, I reviewed their 24 budget. We finalized the health insurance plans, like I already mentioned, and then Stephanie and I worked on getting the employees educated, those meetings, along with both health partners and our consultant, and coordinating all of that stuff. I continue to assist Stephanie on payroll and any human resources related training as she settles into her new position. And then last week, Thursday and Friday, I attended the Wisconsin Government Finance Officers. That was all bond debt related. It was a good meeting. It's nice to meet with others in the state and network. We had a wellness committee and they kicked off a challenge for that. And then I attended an economic development meeting with a number of others. Any questions on that?
Hey. Thank you, Judy. And any questions and answers for by committee members to Judy or to Chad or okay. Let's see, questions and answers, none. Next, can I get a motion to adjourn?
Make that motion.
Second it.
Esau, second by Roberts. To adjourn, all those in favor?